Willow Creek is an obscure found footage horror film that came out in 2013, and it's written and directed by Bobcat Goldthwait. And for those of you who don't know who Bobcat Goldthwait is, which I'm sure is a lot of you, this is Bobcat Goldthwait.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It feels. Thank you. What about my wife? My wife is so fat. I am a living example of Dianetics. My dick is in my chest.
Yeah, holy shit, right? So after having watched that stand-up, I was naturally curious to see how he would do as a film director. The film is supposed to be footage of a young couple who are shooting a documentary about Bigfoot. They go to the local site where the original Patterson-Gimlin footage was found and shot. They spend a lot of time observing the local artwork of Bigfoot and also discussing personal stories with the locals involved. And eventually they do decide to go hiking and to go search for the spot where the actual footage was shot, and that's when they begin to immediately regret their decision. Now, I personally don't really believe in Bigfoot. I don't completely rule out the possibility of one existing or one that did exist, but I find the lore, culture, and history behind Bigfoot to be extremely intriguing. This film's been out for 4 years, but I had no idea that it even existed until 2 months ago when I watched an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. Joe Rogan brings Bobcat in and they discuss the film, and Bobcat discusses the process of making the film and his experiences making the film. Joe Rogan also discusses his disbelief in Bigfoot, while Bobcat goes into why he believes in Bigfoot. It's pretty entertaining. The Joe Rogan Experience is an excellent podcast. I highly recommend it. And I'm also going to recommend Willow Creek because I was mostly impressed by it. Of course, there's a few things here and there that I didn't like, but first let's get into the positives. First one being the writing. I was really impressed with the writing of this film. The conversational pieces and exchanges between the couple was written in a way that made it sound very realistic and off the cuff. It really did sound kind of like weird shit that couples will talk about when they're by themselves. The writing also had a very comedic element to it that made me genuinely laugh throughout. And the acting was way better than I thought it was going to be. The chemistry between these actors was great, and I really bought them as a couple. This film focuses a lot on adding depth to the two main characters, which is something that I really like and appreciate. You can tell that the film really wants you to get comfortable with these characters. The film wants you to actually care about these characters before all the bad shit starts happening. And the film also does a great job at building suspense. There's an incredibly impressive scene where the couple is sleeping in a tent in the woods. And it's impressive because it consists of what seemed like a 20-minute long take, with great acting and chilling sound design that will have you on the edge of your seat for a long time. I'd say that the film is damn near perfect up until the third act hits. The third act isn't absolutely horrible, but there are certain decisions made and a certain direction that it went. It mimics a few Blair Witch tropes, which are also apparent in other found footage movies. And there's also something that happens at the very end that seems completely random and out of left field. I can definitely understand why somebody would dislike this film due to its erratic conclusion. But after taking a long time to think about it, and me getting pissed off at myself for not being able to make sense of what the hell Bobcat was trying to do with that ending, I decided to take it upon myself and just search the depths of Reddit. I wanted to see if there was anybody out there that could conjure up a logical theory and explain why such a random thing would happen. And luckily I did find a plausible, logical, somewhat convincing theory that someone wrote. But that gets into spoiler territory, so before I start getting into all that stuff, I'm going to go ahead and give my grade. I'm going to give Willow Creek a B. For those of you who haven't seen the film yet, which I'm sure is about 99% of you, go see the film and then come back and watch the video because I'm sure you're going to want to know what the hell's going on as well. Alright, so I'm about to get into some major spoilers, so you've been double warned. You can't hold me accountable if you get triggered, it's not my problem. So the third act of the film ends with the characters coming upon a half-nude, heavy-set, wild-looking human woman who makes an ape-like moaning vocalization. The male character Jim is killed by a Bigfoot off camera, and the female character Kelly is heard being presumably carried off, screaming for help. The film ends as we hear multiple Bigfoot vocalizations coming from the surrounding area in multiple directions. So the thing that really makes this third act so incredibly wacky is the naked fat lady that seems to come out of nowhere. So when I went on to Reddit searching for answers, Reddit user by the name of Marlowe seemed to have a pretty decent explanation. Now, his explanation states that these Bigfoot animals abduct human women, keep them as a part of their group, and sexually abuse them and use them as sex slaves, and they could also potentially be using them to breed. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this sounds insane. It sounds way too far-fetched. It sounds like Marlowe here is really overreaching. But to me, this does have some compelling pieces of evidence to prove it. It all starts with a scene where the couple is making fun and making a mockery of the missing persons image on the missing persons flyer. The person in the missing persons flyer is also a woman. I know that this alone isn't enough evidence, but there's also many references to Bigfoot and sex. There's a scene where they're eating at a Bigfoot restaurant and they make countless references to Bigfoot's dick. And also, not far long after that, there's a scene where Jim's girlfriend is making a sexual gesture towards a Bigfoot statue. And the last piece of evidence that seems pretty compelling is during that long 20-minute take of that tent scene, there's a moment where you can seem to hear what sounds like a woman whimpering and crying. It sounds like she is suffering and being taken against her will. Or this could be complete bullshit and Bobcat just didn't know what to do with the third act and he decided to throw in something random. I don't know. But hell, for me it seems somewhat plausible. It'd be really awesome to get the opportunity to ask him one day about it. So there's that theory explained. I mean, it doesn't totally excuse the ending, but it definitely makes me feel more comfortable with it. It definitely grew on me after reading it. Well, that's what I think about Willow Creek, a Bigfoot found footage horror film that came out 4 years ago that I did not know about until 2 months ago. But I certainly do recommend it. It's a pretty interesting film. I think everybody should see it, even though you might hate it. It's worth seeing just for the tense scene alone. I was really surprised and impressed that I found myself to be tensed up for long periods of time. If you really enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And as always, thank you so much for checking out this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the Misfit Pawn channel to be updated on more film-related content.